In 1967, an angel came down to earth from heaven and told my mama she'd be having a son and to name him Dean. Well, my mama didn't ask no questions. I got my name called, she followed directions. And that's when a gift from God was sent to all the ladies. At age 6 I picked up a guitar and sang along, with a gift for writing beautiful poems and great songs. I decided with my gift from God I'd sing to the people. Then as a very intelligent young man I started rambling, 'cause he watches over me, I don't consider it gambling. When I hop in a complete stranger's wheels, traveling cross country. See, I believe the Lord has put me here to sing to you. So even if it kills me, that's what I plan to do. With such purpose in life, made oh so clear to me, who am I to argue with the powers that be? See, I believe the Lord has put me here to sing to you. So even if it kills me, that's what I plan to do. With such purpose in life, made oh so clear to me, who am I to argue with the powers that be? I'm not one to argue with the powers that be.
Welcome to the Central Texas Spotlight. I'm Michael Westbrook, and we are privileged to be joined with Dean Strickland. Dean, thanks for being here with us. Busy schedule, I know.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Now, Dean, you are a singer and songwriter. You're here for the Brownwood reunion, as a lot of people are. Tell us about yourself just a little bit.
Well, I hitchhiked here from Fort Worth, Texas, and I've been hitchhiking around the state of Texas to my gigs, over 200 gigs in 29 cities all over Texas, and I've been doing it now for 24 months, about to start into my second year.
Now, there's so many things to pick up there. 200 gigs, that has to be a lot, but obviously everybody wants to know about the hitchhiking. It sounds almost as if it's a heroic struggle, but yet successful struggle, to just hitchhike everywhere. What made you decide to do that?
I've been singing and playing since I was a little kid at 6 years old, and I just had this feeling inside me that it's all that I want to do, and I really have a passion for music and songwriting, and I started out hitchhiking out of necessity out of Austin, Texas in September of 2005 because I ran out of money and I had to get to Dallas, and someone who I knew in Austin at the time suggested that I try walking. He thought, well, someone may give you a ride, and I did, and within 24 hours I was back in Dallas, and I played my gig on time, and I said, well, that worked, and I chose to walk back to Austin, and from then I walked to Bryan College Station, and then I started walking all over Texas from Lubbock, and now I've been at all points in Texas practically.
In the modern day time, from Dallas to Houston, or Houston to Austin, Austin to Dallas, travel is by airplane, by car, but you are walking. And how long did it take you? You said within 24 hours. What was the actual time frame from Austin to Dallas?
I started out at 11 o'clock at night, and I probably got into Dallas 7 o'clock the next day. I had taken several rides, and I did a lot of walking.
How many people picked you up along that one trip in particular?
I'd say 3 or 4 probably picked me up. That was my first journey in hitchhiking.
The furthest you've ever traveled?
Oh, I did hitchhike in late May. I hitchhiked from Houston, Texas to Los Angeles, California, and spoke at a seminar out there. And I've also hitchhiked from Wichita Falls, Texas to South Padre Island, which is down by Brownsville, and I've hitchhiked from Brownsville to El Paso.
That has to be, I'm thinking, the southernmost part of Texas to the western part, Brownsville to El Paso, 800 miles?
Right, yeah, and I've been very fortunate in that I've been doing a lot of my own PR along the way, and I called the El Paso Times and told them I was taking this hitchhiking trip to go play at a gig for free. A lot of times I play for free, and they gave me a big story in the paper, and so I've been doing good at getting my story and writing songs and getting my name out there, which is what I'm really trying to do.
Dean Strickland, singer-songwriter. He's here for the 7th annual Brownwood Reunion Celebration. He'll be playing 9:45 Saturday morning, and Dean, we'll turn it back over to you. This is your stage here today, and we'd love to hear another song from you.
Well, thank you. I'd like to play a song. It's called Everywhere I Go. I wrote it in South Padre Island several months ago.
We'd love to hear it.
Thank you, sweet Lord, for sending me songs with you in my life. I cannot go wrong. There's no one else for this I owe thanks to. So I write you these lines without further ado. Thank you, Mama and Daddy, for showing me love, raising a boy like me. I'm sure had to be tough. And now that I'm a man, I want to show my gratitude. So I write you these lines without further ado. If you don't know by now, I love you. If you don't know by now, I'm missing you out here on the road. If you don't know by now, let me tell you. You're with me everywhere I go. To my friends and family, of whom I have lost, for words expressing how much I miss you, I am at a loss. So before the Lord says my time has come, and I leave this world too, I write you these lines without further ado. If you don't know by now, I love you. If you don't know by now, I'm missing you out here on the road. If you don't know by now, let me tell you. You're with me every I love you. If you don't know by now, I'm missing you out here on the road. If you don't know by now, let me tell you. You're with me everywhere I go. You're with me everywhere I go.
Dean Strickland, a singer-songwriter. He's here for the 7th Annual Brownwood Reunion Celebration. Be playing at the Hometown Hero stage, is that right?
Very happy to be doing so.
9:45 Saturday morning. You can hear Mr. Strickland. You mentioned your parents in that song.
Yes.
Have they ever been able to see you play in a live venue the way that you travel?
Very rarely. My mom once, she lives in Bowie, Texas, and she once made the trip into Fort Worth, where I played in the Fort Worth Stockyards at the White Elephant Saloon, and she once made a trip to Denton. I played a gig in Denton, but those are about the only 2 times that I can remember that she made it. And I wrote that song for my mom, and I also wrote it for my dad, who has passed away. But yeah, that's a very that song's very close to my heart.
Right, I could see why it would be. From a musical standpoint, you said you were 6 years old, but how did you get started in this? Who was there to help you out along the way?
Well, my dad played the guitar and sang, and his guitar was always sitting around the house, and I picked it up at age 6, and he taught me how to play Folsom Prison Blues by Johnny Cash, and then I sensed that I had this, I picked it up really quick, the whole strumming thing, and singing is something that I've loved to do, and I was able to mimic Johnny Cash. And then my oldest brother taught me at the same year, during the same year, he taught me how to play classic rock bands, like the Rolling Stones and the Who, and so I had those kinds of influences growing up.
If you're just joining us, Dean Strickland, he's been hitchhiking for the past 2 years in order to get to where he needs to go. It started in a trip from Austin, had to find his way back to Dallas to play the gig that he had said he would play. From ever since then, he's traveled from, was it Houston to L.A.?
I did travel from Houston to L.A.
And now you were putting on a seminar there. You said you do
Yes.
a lot of the PR yourself. How have you been able to manufacture gigs for yourself to get places? And what seminar were you putting on?
Oh, I spoke at a seminar put on by songnet.org in L.A., and I spoke at a seminar called Making a Living in Music, and there were 3 musicians. There were 3 of us, and we each had different ways of making a living doing nothing but music, and I have this unique perspective, and so I was invited out. And I told him, well, I've been hitchhiking around the state of Texas, and I told him how I do it. You asked me how I go about getting my gigs. Whenever I go into a new town and I don't know anyone, I'll walk into this town, and I'll pick up the local newspapers and rag magazines, and I'll find out where the venues are, and I'll walk in, and I'll ask if I can do live auditions, because I don't have a demo at this point that I pass out. And if they allow me 5-10 minutes of their time, the booker that is, I've always passed live auditions, and I'll put it on my schedule from 3 to 6 months in advance, and then I'll leave that town.
To make sure you can get there.
Right, and then I'll leave that town, and I'll go into other towns, either playing what I've already booked or looking for new gigs, and then I'll return. And I always give myself, like if I got to go 400 miles to my next gig, I'll give myself 5 days to get there.
Now, Dean, you may not be modern in the fact that you walk everywhere, but I see that you're modern with a MySpace. Tell people about that.
I have a MySpace. It's myspace.com/NeverDieRecords. It's a record label name that I came up with as an assignment as a student in Hollywood, California at Musicians Institute. And that's the MySpace, and I have demos on it that I've recorded in different studios around Texas. After I write them, I go into studios and I record the guitar and vocals, and I have links to my other websites which have newspaper clippings, and I also have some YouTube videos from other television shows that I've been on.
Central Texas Spotlight with Dean Strickland, and tell us about the next song that you're going to play, and then we'll let you go right ahead and play another one for us.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'd like to play a song that I wrote on the road. It's a song about growing up and about things that are... I always write songs that are personal to me, and this is like a true song, and it's called The Good Lord Knows. As a child, I would daydream of interviews full of questions for me, and a featured spot on TV, and a radio show where I'd sing. How far can I go? There's only one who knows. The good Lord knows. How far can I go? There's only one who knows. The good Lord knows. As long as I have my strength and a dedicated mind to do so, I'll stay positive and focused and go anywhere I want to go. How far can I go? There's only one who knows. The good Lord knows. How far can I go? There's only one who knows. The good Lord knows. I made a wise decision. Looking back, I'd say quite some time ago, that when good or bad things happen, I'll leave my life in His hands and go with the flow. How far can I go? There's only one who knows. The good Lord knows. How far can I go? There's only one who knows. The good Lord knows.
Dean Strickland, a singer and songwriter, and I see behind you here we got your guitar case, a couple of bags. I wouldn't be able to travel about a mile, I think, maybe with all of that. Has this been with you the whole trip since September of '05 when you began this
Well,
journey?
when I first took off, I had one bag. I had this bag here, and then I acquired two bags within the first month, and then I got my third bag several months later, and it all weighs 70 pounds. And I do a lot of walking and a lot of sweating, as you can imagine, in the summertime from doing all that walking. And I carry with me, I carry a microphone and a mic cable and a guitar cable, and I carry my press kit in this bag, and then in that bag I have some blankets and a beach towel type of thing that whenever I find myself having to camp out, which is more often than not, I make my bed, somewhere, and I get up early in the morning and get going again.
Have you ever slept in someone's home? Is it always roadside? I mean, how does that work?
No, it's not always roadside. A lot of times I meet friends, and I make friends, and they welcome me into their homes and allow me to sleep on their couch or on their floor or something like that. And but I would say that since I've been on the road almost 24 months now, I'd say about 16 of those months, night for night, I've slept behind buildings, camping out here and there, and and then the other months I've stayed at friends' houses or hotels whenever that I can afford them.
Truly a remarkable story. Dean Strickland, he's here for the Brownwood reunion celebration. It comes up this weekend, if you don't already know that. It's the 7th annual, and Dean will be playing at 9:45 in the morning at the Hometown Hero stage. And we're just talking to Dean about the way that he gets places. He hitchhikes. He's gone, that song right there, you mentioned you don't know how far you'll have to go. We know you've gone from Houston to L.A., and you also mentioned something that I'd like to hit on a little bit. It sounds like your faith has to be very important in your journey along the way.
Yes, I do a lot of prayer on the road. Whenever I hit the road, people tell me about the dangers, and I'm a little bit afraid myself whenever I hit the road, because I never know, I mean, people's cars somebody could venture off the road and hit me or something, or then there's also the probability that someone could try to injure me after I get in their car. And so I do prayer. I do silent prayers, of course, as I'm walking down the road, that the Lord will put it on someone's heart to offer me a ride. And I continue that prayer while I'm walking, and sometimes that means I have to keep on walking, because I feel like that I have to give that prayer time. And then whenever a car does pull over, I do another little silent prayer, or maybe this time I say it out loud, that let this be a good person and not someone who wants to rob me. So I have faith growing as I continue my journey. Yes.
The trip to Houston to L.A. is really something I keep hitting on. How many people picked you up on that trip?
Well, I got pretty lucky on that trip. I started out in Houston and took 4 or 5 rides and made my way to San Antonio on the west side. And I camped out in San Antonio. And then the next morning I got back on the highway, and within 4 or 5 rides I was on the east side of San Antonio. San Antonio is a big city.
So it took 4 rides just to get through San Antonio?
Yeah, because San Antonio is a big city, and I was going early in the morning. People, they were just going to work and stuff. And but I did make my way 5 miles outside of East San Antonio, and I was walking. I had walked about 5 miles, and this is where I got lucky. I was sitting there walking, or just walking, and a car pulled over, and the guy asked me if I needed a ride. I said, yeah, I'm going to L.A., and he said, so am I. And so 3 days later, he dropped me off, and I got on the bus in L.A. on the Metro. And
now, I talk about a friendship there. You spent 3 days with them. I'm sure you had to develop a friendship out of that.
Yeah, a lot of times whenever I get into cars, it's almost immediate that I'm able to develop a friendship with the people, because I have to be friendly to everyone, and everyone is different.
Right.
So, I mean, this person may be a whole lot different than the last person who gave me a ride, but I always make a point to be very friendly to everyone.
Are you ever worried about where you're going to eat? We've already talked about sleeping a little bit, but how often does that come up in your concerns and your prayers, to think, am I going to have the next meal? I mean, I know your bags weigh 70 pounds, but you can't keep everything in there.
Well, I do make some money on the road, and sometimes my gigs pay pretty decently, considering that I'm just starting in the business. And that sustains me, and so I don't have to worry about food. But hey,
I can see why people might want to rob you now. I'm kind of putting that together. So.
But a lot of times I play for free, and then sometimes I go off on journeys and I don't have money, and I'm not above standing in line at a church. If I'm hungry, I just don't put myself above that kind of stuff, and I know that I have to eat, and so whenever I do find myself completely broke, I may stand in a line at times, not very often, and then I continue on my journey.
Some people might hear you say that you're playing for free, and to some people that might be an absurd thing. Sometimes you just have to do that as a musician, right?
Well, I went to college, 8 years of music college, and the last 2 years was in a school that concentrated on the business of the music business itself, and I learned that it's a very difficult business, and so I also was told by one of the instructors that the business is so difficult that you might find yourself sleeping on the sidewalk, and so whenever I do find myself sleeping outdoors behind buildings and such, I just think to myself, well, I'm doing what I learned in college. I'm doing what I have to do to get through this very difficult business.
Dean, we have about 3 or 4 minutes. I'd like to let you just go and play one more song if you want to.
Oh, well, thank you very much. This is a song I wrote on the road called The Commitment. Sad former brother-in-law, it's such a shame how commonplace single parenting is these days. Your first mistake was letting work get in the way. The long hours you kept gave her time to stray. Imagine what could have been had you been with her to say, I've made all these commitments to running this old business that you probably think I've forgotten. What's most important in my life, the commitment I made to spend it with you, my wife. There's an old similar story I probably should have told you before. You see, my father was a real hard worker. He spent his days and nights doing chores. But wiser than the new generation, he knew when enough was enough. And he never forgot or left lonesome the only woman he ever loved. He'd say to her, I've made all these commitments to running this old business that you probably think I've forgotten. What's most important in my life, the commitment I made to spend it with you, my wife. Now the long nights I spend in the honky-tonks and clubs doesn't give me much time for nothing except singing about love and lost love. But I've made myself a promise, when I find that one special girl, I'll find time to be there for her so we can share our worlds. I won't forget to say I've made all these commitments to running this old business that you probably think I've forgotten. What's most important in my life, the commitment I made to spend